At the engagement banquet, Ethan learned that his first love was being forced into an arranged marriage with his blind rival. Without hesitation, he rushed to register a marriage certificate with her. That very afternoon, the two flew to Iceland for their honeymoon. Their childhood love, so touching and profound, went viral across the internet. Meanwhile, I became the disgraceful third party who had interfered in their love, suffering such intense cyberbullying that I couldn't even step out of my house. Unexpectedly, that blind rival of Ethan showed up at my door. I've always been one to repay grievances in full. Since that brat Ethan stole my fiancé, I'll just have to steal his woman. A fair trade requires reciprocity, Miss Shaw. Would you be willing to register a marriage with me? I glanced at the trending search, where their romantic kiss under the aurora was all over the internet. Without hesitation, I handed my household registration booklet to the man before me. Even after receiving the marriage certificate, I still couldn't believe I had just entered a flash marriage. Moreover, my husband was not Ethan, my boyfriend of 8 years, but Henry, someone I had only met a few times, who had once stood on the opposing side. Once the certificate is issued, there's no backing out. When are you moving in? Realizing what he meant, my face instantly heated up. Luckily, he couldn't see it. Half a month. I still need some time to pack. Henry nodded. That works. Half a month is enough time to prepare for our wedding. Buy whatever you like. He stuffed a black card into my hand, his flushed ears betraying the excitement he tried to hide. I pressed my lips into a smile, thinking it was not a bad start. 10 days into my honeymoon, Ethan finally remembered to call me. My flight lands at 3 p.m. Come pick me up. There was no explanation and no acknowledgement, as if nothing had ever happened. Yet for the past 10 days, the internet had been abuzz with updates about his honeymoon with Cynthia. Every sweet moment was broadcast in real time. I watched them wrapped in each other's arms at the Blue Lagoon, sharing a passionate kiss under the aurora, making vows of eternal love on the black sand beach. He had taken someone else first to all the places I had once dreamed of visiting for my honeymoon. I'm Busse. Get a taxi. Once upon a time, no matter when or where, just one word from him was enough for me to drop everything and run to his side without hesitation. Ethan fell silent for a moment before letting out a cold snort and hanging up. At this point, I thought this was an unspoken breakup between two adults. But when I got home that evening, I found him sitting on the sofa in a bathrobe. Seeing me, he casually lifted his gaze as if nothing had happened. The house is pretty tidy without me around. Over the past few days, I had thrown away many things related to Ethan. The couple's photo of us that once hung in the living room was now gone, yet he didn't seem to notice. He pointed at a paper bag on the table. A gift for you. Take a look. I glanced at it. It was a pile of broken seashells, some still covered in mud. Just moments ago, Cynthia had been flaunting on social media that Ethan had gifted her a massive ocean star gemstone. With the help of internet sleuths, I finally understood that all the so-called heartfelt gifts I had received over the years were nothing more than discarded trash. On Valentine's Day, he gave Cynthia a limited edition designer bag, while I got a heart folded from wrapping paper. On her birthday, he lit up the entire city with fireworks, yet took me to a street stall for skewers on mine. Every holiday, he claimed work kept him too busy to meet my parents, when in reality, he was dining with Cynthia's family instead. Mr. Hill, you're a married man now. Isn't it inappropriate to show up at my place in the middle of the night? A flicker of guilt flashed across Ethan's face. Wendy, I only did this to help Cynthia. Henry is cold, ruthless, and blind. I couldn't just stand by and watch Cynthia jump into the fire. Marrying her was just a temporary measure. After some time, I'll separate from her. He had already come up with his excuse. Mr. Hill, I have no interest in being the third party. Please leave. From the moment he abandoned me at the engagement banquet, we were already over. Ethan's face darkened. Wendy, can you stop being so selfish? Cynthia was worried you'd be heartbroken, so she asked me to come back and keep you company. And this is how you repay her kindness? If you were sensible, I could come and keep you company on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. After all, Cynthia and I are married, so I should spend more time with her. A bitter feeling rose in my heart. 8 years of love, only to end up as a hidden mistress. Ethan, we're breaking up. Ethan's face darkened, with a faint hint of anger. Wendy, are you taking my kindness for granted? It's just a piece of paper. Why are you making such a fuss? Before we had that piece of paper, you still let me sleep with you for 8 years. Now you're being all dramatic? If it weren't for you begging me in bed, saying you couldn't live without me, do you think I'd still want you? At your age, you're still playing hard to get games. How pathetic is that? I was shaking with rage. He had been the one who stubbornly pursued me back then, the one who drunkenly cried and asked me to help ease his pain. Now he married Cynthia, turning me into a joke in everyone's eyes, and yet he blames me for being selfish and inconsiderate. Ethan, we're done. From now on, you live your life and I'll live mine. We have nothing to do with each other. Ethan was furious. He grabbed the bag of broken seashells and slammed it onto the ground, shattering it into pieces. Wendy, you still want to marry someone else? In this circle, everyone knows you've been with me for 8 years. You're already used up. Who would want an old spinster like you? In the tense silence, the bathroom door suddenly opened. Cynthia stepped out, wrapped in a bath towel barefoot. I immediately stopped breathing. At the engagement banquet, Ethan had answered a call and rushed off. Over the past few days, I had been watching their displays of affection online. Now, I wasn't sure if it was more pain, bitterness, or anger I felt. This house was bought when Ethan and I were deeply in love, each of us contributing half the money. He said it would be our love nest, a place filled with our happy memories. Wendy, don't blame Ethan, he was just trying to help me. If you must blame someone, blame me. I'm the one who's unnecessary, she said as she reached out to grab my hand. I instinctively pulled my hand away, not even touching her. Yet she let out a cry and fell to the ground. Before I could react, Ethan slapped me, knocking me to the ground. The sharp pain in my hand was immediate. The broken seashells on the floor pierced deeply into my palm, and blood began to drip, splattering onto the ground. Are you okay, Cynthia? He turned around and glared at me with disgust. If anything happens to Cynthia, I won't let you off easily. He hurriedly carried Cynthia downstairs and rushed to the hospital. I struggled to stand up, looking around the house I had lived in for 8 years, feeling like it was strangely unfamiliar. On my bed, the sheets were wrinkled, a torn black stocking was draped over the edge, and the floor was littered with used tissues. The air was filled with a disgusting smell. I hurried out, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. It was filthy, and now even the house felt dirty. There were too many broken seashells stuck in my palm, so I had no choice but to take a taxi to the hospital. I purposely chose a hospital far from home, but as fate would have it, I ran into Ethan and Cynthia. Cynthia was holding her hand, which hadn't even been broken, and crying out in pain. Ethan, in his usual gentle manner, picked her up and sat her on his lap, carefully asking the doctor for any precautions. When we first got together, he had been just as anxious for me. One night, when I had a fever, he was so flustered that he didn't even put on shoes, only realizing later that his foot had been cut by glass after confirming that I was safe. Wendy, you are my precious. I can't bear to see you get hurt. As I walked out, I happened to bump into him just as he was entering. Wendy, Ethan was just accompanying me to check my injury. Are you so restless that you had to follow us here? Ethan gave me a contemptuous look. Weren't you just saying how we're broken up? What are you doing now? Wendy, you're too shameless. If you dare hurt a single hair on Cynthia again, I won't be polite with you. I raised my hand, now stained with blood. Look at the injury, move aside. Ethan froze in place, a flash of guilt passing through his eyes. Wendy, is the injury serious? He tried to come inside but was interrupted by Cynthia's scream. Cynthia, my hand hurt so much. Ethan no longer paid attention to me, quickly turning around and carrying Cynthia away. The next morning, as soon as I woke up, I received a message from Henry, asking me to make time to try on the custom wedding ring. After freshening up, I was surprised to see Ethan carrying breakfast into the room. You must be starving. Gourmet. It was a basket of crab roe buns and a bowl of pumpkin porridge. One caused an allergy and the other was something I absolutely hated. Take the day off today. It's the changing of seasons, let me take you shopping for some new clothes. It was the same old routine. He gave a little treat after a blow, something he often did over the years. However, when the time actually came, he took the back seat. Today you drive. I didn't rest well last night. I looked at my hand, wrapped in bandages, and couldn't help but mock myself silently. In the rearview mirror, he held his phone, a faint smile playing on his lips. It wasn't until the car stopped and he saw the sign of the jewelry store outside that his expression immediately darkened. He blocked my way at the door, his face full of displeasure. Wendy, I've told you before, let's wait a bit. Why do you have to force me like this? I'm just getting a certificate with Cynthia, not holding a wedding. No one knows. Once the fuss dies down, we'll quietly get a divorce. Before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted. Ethan, do you think this diamond ring is pretty? Cynthia was wearing a 1-carat diamond ring, raising her hand and acting coquettishly towards Ethan. Ethan immediately put on a smile. As long as you like it, it's beautiful. Our wedding is in 5 days. Can I buy this one as our wedding ring? I paused in my tracks, just in time to catch Ethan turning his head awkwardly. His words were all lies. But it didn't matter. In 5 days, it would be my wedding too. It seemed to confirm the idea of men and women marrying, each going their own way. The waiter carefully brought over the ring that Henry had ordered. It was a pink diamond, the only one of its kind in the world, stunning and dazzling. Cynthia's eyes were full of greed as she looked at the ring on my hand. Wendy, I really like the ring on your hand. Can I try it on? The nearby waiter immediately apologized. I'm sorry, but this ring has already been reserved. Would you like to look at something else? Cynthia's eyes turned red in an instant. Wendy, do you know about our wedding in 5 days and are you deliberately teaming up with the staff here to make trouble? I really like this ring. I just want to experience what it feels like to be a bride. Can't you just let me try it on? No. I am getting married in 5 days too. Ethan's face darkened like ink. Wendy, are you done yet? When did I ever say I wanted to marry you? I furrowed my brows slightly. Ethan, don't get ahead of yourself. The person I'm marrying is not you. He sneered repeatedly. After being with me for 8 years, who else would want you, a used woman? People should know their own worth. Don't foolishly ruin your own future. He stepped forward and roughly yanked the diamond ring off my finger, not caring as my finger was scratched and the skin torn. He was full of joy as he tried to put the diamond ring on Cynthia's finger, but realized the ring was too small to fit. I'll take this ring. Please resize it. How much will it cost? The salesperson quietly mentioned a price and Ethan and Cynthia's faces turned pale. Wendy, even if you don't want me to marry Ethan, there's no need to be so despicable and raise the price to trick us. Ethan shook his head at me in disappointment. Wendy, I never thought you'd be this vicious. They tried to take my ring, couldn't afford the price and then turned around to blame me? The two of them left angrily, and I received a call from Henry. Do you like the diamond ring? Don't forget, you need to try on the wedding dress later. Yes, I really like it. I drove to the bridal shop Henry had specified, and as soon as I entered, I saw Cynthia caressing a one-shoulder wedding dress. Miss Green, I'm sorry, but this dress has already been reserved. I want this one. Call the person who reserved it. I'm willing to pay 10% more to buy it. When the sales associate saw me enter, her eyes lit up. The real customer is here. Why don't you communicate directly with her, Miss Green? When she saw me, there was a flash of unwillingness and anger in Cynthia's eyes. Wendy, why do you always haunt me and go against me? You took my wedding ring before, and now you're stealing my wedding dress. Beside her, Ethan frowned deeply. Wendy, you said you wanted to break up with me, but you're forcing me to marry you with your wedding ring and wedding dress. You're really shameless. Even if you come to steal my wedding, I won't even spare you a glance. I'll give both the wedding dress and the wedding ring to Cynthia. I laughed softly. Who says that buying a wedding ring and wedding dress means I'm going to marry you? You're not the only man in the world. You can't afford a wedding ring or a wedding dress, and now you expect me to give them to you for free? Ethan's face turned between pale and seeing this, Cynthia covered her face and ran out. Ethan, since you've already decided on the wedding ring and dress, I'm unnecessary. I'll leave now. Wendy, Ethan, in a fit of rage, grabbed the scissors from the table and began slashing at the wedding dress without care. I'll make you stop forcing marriage and making Cynthia sad. You want to get married, right? Let's see what you'll wear to your wedding now that the dress is gone. This wedding dress was specially commissioned by Henry, with top designers working overtime to complete it. I rushed forward to stop him, but he shoved me to the ground and the sharp scissors immediately cut my other hand. Ethan seemed to have lost his mind, tearing the perfectly good wedding dress into pieces. Not satisfied, he stomped on it with force. Wendy, you're dreaming of marrying me? Keep dreaming. If you dare ruin my wedding 5 days from now, your end will be just like this wedding dress. After saying that, he didn't even glance at me and hurriedly chased after Cynthia. The sales assistant beside me turned pale and quickly made a phone call. In the midst of my daze, Henry called. Are you hurt? Don't worry about the wedding dress. I'll arrange for legal assistance to handle it. I'm sorry, I said with full of embarrassment and grievance. Wendy, it's just a wedding dress, it's okay. I'm overseas right now. I've asked someone to send you a gift, hoping it'll make you feel a bit better. As soon as I got home, a butler dressed in a suit and tie came to the door, seriously handing me a box. Inside was a complete set of emerald jewelry. This is the family heirloom of my family, passed down through generations to the matriarch of the Smith family. Please accept it, Miss Shaw. I carefully took the box, a wave of warmth flooding my heart. Henry truly respected me as his wife, and for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope for the future of our marriage. Just as I was about to pick up a call from a colleague regarding some unclear work details, I returned and found that the emerald heirloom was nowhere to be found. I searched the entire room, but there was no trace of it. The doors and windows showed no signs of being tampered with. Just as I was about to call the police, I suddenly saw Cynthia's post on her social media. Unable to find a wedding ring that I liked, who knew he would prepare traditional Elle jewelry for me instead? This must be what it feels like to marry for love. In the photo, Cynthia wore earrings, a necklace, and jade bracelets. Weren't those the very emerald heirlooms that Henry had given me? I opened the room's surveillance footage and saw that after I left, Ethan and Cynthia had visited. Ethan, is this the surprise you prepared for me? It's so beautiful. Cynthia immediately set her eyes on the emerald jewelry I had left on the bedside table. Ethan paused for a moment, looking awkward as he stammered. I'm glad you like it. My heart was in turmoil. I couldn't think any longer and rushed to Ethan's house. When I arrived, Cynthia was showing off the jewelry set in front of Ethan's relatives. This is the heirloom from Ethan, she said smugly. He's already decided that I'm going to be the daughter-in-law of the Hill family. The shine on this is so impressive. Ethan really treats you well. My blood boiled in anger as I stormed forward and pointed at them. Thief, who gave you permission to steal my emerald jewelry? Give it back to me. Seeing me, Cynthia sneered and mocked me. Wendy, can you have some dignity? This set of jewelry is Ethan's family heirloom. When did it become your personal property? You've already taken my wedding ring and wedding dress, and now you want to steal the Hill family's heirloom? How shameless can you be? I looked at Ethan, who was standing beside me with a guilty expression. Are you sure this is your family's heirloom? Do you want me to call the police and confirm it right now? Ethan, embarrassed by my words, became enraged. Enough. Even if it's not my family's heirloom, but you stole Cynthia's wedding ring and wedding dress, shouldn't you apologize to her? At worst, once Cynthia gets tired of it, I'll let you wear it for a few days. I felt my blood boil. I had never encountered such shameless behavior from such a pair of dogs. Not wanting to waste any more words, I pulled out my phone to call the police. Cynthia's eyes flickered, and she suddenly tore off the jewelry she was wearing. Wendy, stop making things difficult for us over and over again. If you want it, just take it. Just let us go. Ethan doesn't love you, stop pestering him. She put on a look of being wronged, as if I were truly the shameless, persistent woman. Cynthia handed the jewelry to me, but suddenly let go and the entire set of emerald jewelry crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. My head rang and for a moment, it felt as if the blood in my body had frozen. However, Cynthia smiled slightly. Oh, why didn't you catch it, Wendy? It's such a pity, this fine emerald. Ethan looked down at me from above, his tone full of disdain. Wendy, stop embarrassing yourself. Take your junk and get out of my house. I looked at the shattered pieces on the ground, my heart aching beyond words. Ethan, I will never forgive you for the rest of my life. He sneered. So what if you don't forgive me? Don't come crawling back like a dog in a few days, begging me to take you back. I warn you, don't come and ruin my wedding in 5 days. If you're obedient, maybe I'll feel generous and visit you every once in a while. No need, you'd better never come looking for me again. With that, I turned and left his house and listed the house for sale. The family heirloom had been destroyed and I couldn't help but feel guilty. Henry continuously comforted me on the phone. It's just a material possession. Since I gave it to you, it's yours to do with as you please. Anyway, are you ready? I don't want my bride to be walking down the aisle with swollen eyes from crying. Before I knew it, the wedding day arrived and I inexplicably began to feel nervous. Just as I finished doing my makeup, of course, I bumped into Ethan in a suit in the bathroom again. Wendy, you're really thick-skinned. I've already told you not to come and disrupt the wedding. Are you deaf? Looks like if I don't teach you a lesson, you'll keep ignoring what I say. Someone, take her away and lock her up. I struggled desperately. Ethan, let go of me. I'm not trying to ruin your wedding. Ethan sneered. Wendy, even when you lie, you don't even bother to prepare. If you weren't trying to steal the wedding, why are you dressed like this? Let go of me. I told you, my marriage has nothing to do with you. The person I'm going to marry isn't you. He contemptuously pinched my chin. Besides me, who else would want you? Wendy, there's a limit to how much you can act. If you go too far, you'll just annoy people. Just as he ordered his men to take me away, a deep male voice came from behind. Mr. Hill, where do you plan to take my bride? The air in the hallway froze. Ethan slowly turned his head. Standing a few feet away was Henry Smith. He was dressed in a tailored black tuxedo that fit his broad shoulders perfectly. His sharp jawline and straight posture exuded an aura of unquestionable authority. The sunglasses he usually wore to cover his blind eyes had been replaced by a custom-made silver mask that covered the upper half of his face, making him look mysterious and imposing. Behind him stood a line of bodyguards, easily outnumbering and outclassing Ethan's men. Henry. Ethan's voice trembled slightly, his grip on my arm loosening. What are you doing here? Your bride is inside. Cynthia is waiting for you. Henry let out a low, cold laugh. My bride? He extended his hand toward me. His aim was perfect, guided by the sound of my breathing and the subtle rustle of my wedding gown. Wendy, come here. I pulled my arm out of Ethan's slackened grip and walked over to Henry. Without hesitation, I placed my hand in his. His palm was warm, dry, and reassuring. Immediately pulled me closer, wrapping his arm around my waist in a protective, possessive gesture. Ethan stared at us, his eyes wide in disbelief, his mouth opening and closing, like a fish out of water. Wendy, what is this? What kind of sick joke is this? You're marrying him. It's no joke, Mr. Hill, Henry said, his voice as smooth as velvet but as cold as ice. Wendy and I legally registered our marriage 10 days ago. Today is our wedding ceremony. No. Ethan shouted, his face turning pale, then violently red. No, you can't. You're engaged to Cynthia. I was arranged to be engaged to Cynthia by our respective families, Henry corrected smoothly. An arrangement she broke when she ran off to Iceland with you. A favor, really. She saved me the trouble of breaking it myself. And in return, you saved me the trouble of searching for the perfect wife. Henry gently lifted my hand, the one that Ethan had injured just days prior, and placed a soft kiss on the bandage. I found her. Ethan looked like he had been struck by lightning. The arrogant confidence that usually radiated from him was entirely gone. He looked between me and Henry, his mind struggling to process the reality before him. Wendy, Ethan said, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. You're doing this to make me jealous, aren't you? You found the one man I hate most in this world, and you're using him to get back at me. Don't flatter yourself, Ethan, I said, my voice steady, feeling a newfound strength surging through me. I'm marrying Henry because he respects me. He gave me the choice you never did. And unlike you, he knows the value of a promise. Respects you. Ethan exploded. He's using you. He just wants to humiliate me. He's blind, Wendy. He's a cripple. What kind of life are you going to have with him? The air around Henry seemed to drop by 10 degrees. His bodyguards took a synchronized step forward, their hands hovering near their jackets. Henry raised a single finger, and his men halted. I may be blind, Mr. Hill, Henry said, his tone deadly calm. But even in total darkness, I can see what a worthless, pathetic excuse for a man you are. You threw away a diamond to pick up a piece of trash. And now you're throwing a tantrum because someone else recognized the diamond's worth. You son of a b, Ethan lunged forward. Before he could even get within 2 feet of us, Henry's lead bodyguard intercepted him, grabbing Ethan by the lapels of his suit and shoving him forcefully against the wall. Ethan grunted in pain, struggling against the much larger man. Keep your hands off my wife, Henry ordered, his voice echoing in the corridor. And consider this your final warning, Ethan. If you ever approach Wendy again, if you ever speak a word of disrespect toward her, I will dismantle your family's company piece by piece. I will make sure the Hill family name is synonymous with bankruptcy. Ethan stopped struggling, his eyes wide with fear. He knew Henry wasn't bluffing. The Smith family's influence was vast, reaching into sectors the Hills could only dream of touching. Let him go, Henry instructed. The bodyguard released Ethan, who slid down the wall slightly, adjusting his ruined suit jacket. He looked at me, a mixture of rage, regret, and panic in his eyes. Wendy, please, he choked out. I didn't look back. I squeezed Henry's hand. Let's go. I don't want to be late for our wedding. The wedding venue Henry had arranged was nothing short of a fairy tale. It was held in a private botanical garden, the glass dome ceiling letting in the perfect amount of sunlight. Thousands of white roses and orchids cascaded from the pillars, and a string quartet played a soft, classical melody. It was elegant, tasteful, and entirely focused on us. There were no media, no paparazzi, just a select group of close friends, business associates, and my parents, who Henry had personally flown in and explained everything to. When I walked down the aisle, guided by my father, I looked at Henry waiting at the altar. Even with the mask, he looked breathtaking. When my father placed my hand in his, Henry smiled, a genuine, warm smile that melted away the last of my anxieties. As we exchanged vows, he spoke with absolute sincerity. Wendy, I cannot promise you a life without challenges, but I promise you a life without lies. You will never walk alone, and you will never be second best. Tears blurred my vision as I slid the simple, elegant platinum band onto his finger. He carefully placed the matching band on mine, avoiding my bandaged palm. You may kiss the bride, the officiant announced. Henry stepped closer. He didn't rush. He gently cupped my face, his thumb brushing away a stray tear, before leaning in and pressing his lips to mine. It wasn't a desperate, chaotic kiss. It was deep, anchoring, and full of a quiet, terrifyingly strong promise. The applause echoed through the garden. I was Mrs. Smith. The reception was a blur of congratulations and toasts. Henry stayed by my side the entire time, his hand resting comfortably on the small of my back. He navigated the room with practiced ease, relying on his hearing and my subtle guidance. As the evening wound down, we retreated to the bridal suite of the luxury hotel, attached to the gardens. The door clicked shut, leaving us in a heavy, expectant silence. I suddenly felt incredibly nervous. We were legally married, we had the ceremony, but we barely knew each other. Was this the part where the transaction ended? Henry seemed to sense my tension. He reached up and slowly unclasped the silver mask, setting it on the table. Without it, his face was striking. His eyes, though unseeing, were a beautiful shade of stormy gray. You're nervous, he said softly. A little, I admitted. He smiled, walking toward the minibar to pour 2 glasses of water. You don't need to be. The master bedroom is yours. I'll take the adjoining room. I promised you respect, Wendy. That includes your boundaries. I don't expect you To play the role of a loving wife behind closed doors until you're ready. A wave of relief, mixed with an unexpected pang of disappointment, washed over me. Thank you, Henry. He handed me a glass of water. Our fingers brushed. Get some rest. Tomorrow we have some unfinished business to attend to. Unfinished business? I asked. A dangerous, predatory smile curved his lips. The family heirloom. You didn't think I was going to let them get away with destroying something that belongs to you, did you? The next morning, the internet was on fire. Not with news of my wedding. Henry had kept our ceremony completely private. The trending topics were entirely focused on Ethan and Cynthia. But it wasn't the fairy tale coverage they were expecting. Scandal. Hill family heir abandons wedding for ex-girlfriend. Bride left at the altar. Cynthia Green's meltdown caught on camera. Hill Enterprise stocks plummet. Amidst wedding fiesto. I sat at the breakfast table in Henry's sprawling penthouse, scrolling through the articles in shock. There was a video attached to the top article. I clicked play. It was footage from Ethan and Cynthia's wedding venue. The grand ballroom was packed with high society guests. Cynthia was standing at the altar in a lavish, over-the-top gown, looking furiously at her watch. The camera panned to the entrance. Ethan walked in, but he looked like a mess. His suit was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, and his expression was dark. Ethan, where have you been? Cynthia shrieked, ignoring the microphones. You're an hour late. The wedding is off, Ethan announced, his voice echoing through the silent ballroom. Cynthia's face contorted in horror. What? What are you talking about? Are you crazy? The media is outside. I said it's off, Ethan yelled, running a hand through his hair. I can't do this, Cynthia. I made a mistake. A massive, stupid mistake. He turned to the crowd of shocked guests. I'm sorry for wasting your time. There will be no wedding today. He turned and walked out, leaving Cynthia screaming in a hysterical fit, throwing her bouquet at his retreating back. I stared at my phone, my jaw dropped. Ethan had walked out on her. He realized the magnitude of his mistake, Henry said, walking into the dining room, guided perfectly by the layout he had memorized. He was dressed in a sharp, casual suit, holding a steaming cup of coffee, but realizing a mistake and rectifying it are two different things. Henry, did you have something to do with this? I asked. I simply ensured that a few key members of the press were stationed outside their venue, Henry replied smoothly, taking a seat across from me. And I might have casually mentioned to Ethan's father yesterday that the Smith family would freeze all joint ventures with the Hills if Ethan married Cynthia. I blinked. You threatened his family's business? I protected my wife's honor, Henry corrected. He humiliated you publicly. It was only fair he experienced the same. I looked at him, feeling a strange mixture of awe and intimidation. Henry wasn't just a wealthy man. He was a master chess player, moving pieces on a board no one else could see. Now, Henry said, setting his coffee down. About the emeralds. He pulled a thick folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table to me. What's this? I asked, opening it. That is a certified appraisal of the Smith family heirloom, Henry explained. And a police report I filed this morning for destruction of private property and grand larceny. I looked at the appraisal value and nearly choked on my breath. $50 million. $50 million? I gasped. Henry, I thought it was just a nice set of jewelry. It is a nice set. It also happens to be a centuries-old antique, Henry said. Calmly. Cynthia Green stole it from your home, and she and Ethan destroyed it. Under the law, they are liable for the full amount. They don't have $50 million in liquid cash, I said, my mind racing. Ethan's family is rich, but most of it is tied up in assets and shares. Exactly, Henry smiled, a cold, calculating expression. Which means they will have to liquidate. They will have to sell shares, sell properties, and bleed themselves dry to pay the debt. Or they face criminal charges. You're going to bankrupt them. I'm going to teach them a lesson about taking things that don't belong to them, Henry said. He reached across the table, finding my hand and lacing his fingers through mine. Are you ready to go collect our debt, Mrs. Smith? The atmosphere in the Hill family mansion was thick with panic. When Henry and I arrived, accompanied by a team of lawyers and police officers, the gates were thrown open by frantic staff. We walked into the grand living room to find Ethan's parents looking pale and exhausted. Ethan was sitting on the sofa, his head in his hands. Cynthia was pacing the floor, her eyes red from crying, still wearing the ruined makeup from her cancelled wedding. What is the meaning of this? Mr. Hill demanded, standing up as the police entered. Henry, what are you doing bringing the authorities into my home? Good morning, Arthur, Henry said politely. I believe my lawyers have already forwarded the documents to your legal team. We are here regarding the theft and destruction of the Smith family heirloom. Ethan's head snapped up. When he saw me standing next to Henry, holding his arm, his eyes filled with a desperate, agonizing regret. Wendy, he whispered. Keep her name out of your mouth, Henry snapped, his voice cracking like a whip. Cynthia let out a hysterical laugh. You're suing us over some old jade? Are you insane? Ethan's family can just write you a check. Henry's lead lawyer, a stern woman in a gray suit, stepped forward and handed Mr. Hill a document. The appraised value of the destroyed heirloom is $50 million. As your son and Miss Green were captured on surveillance, stealing the items from Mrs. Smith's residence, and later destroying them, we are demanding immediate restitution, or we will proceed with criminal charges. Mr. Hill looked at the document. The color completely drained from his face. He stumbled backward, collapsing into an armchair. 50 million? Dad, what is it? Ethan asked, rushing over to his father. Mr. Hill suddenly raised his hand and delivered a resounding slap across Ethan's face. The crack echoed through the silent room. You fool, Mr. Hill roared, his voice shaking with rage. You absolute idiot. You threw away Wendy, who supported you for 8 years, for this homewrecker. And now you've doomed our entire family. Dad, I didn't know. Ethan stammered, holding his red cheek. I didn't know how much they were worth. Ignorance is not a defense in the eyes of the law, Henry stated calmly. You have 24 hours to transfer the funds, Arthur. If the money is not in my wife's account by noon tomorrow, the police will arrest Ethan and Cynthia for grand larceny. We don't have $50 million in cash, Mrs. Hill cried, bursting into tears. Henry, please have mercy. Our company's stock is already crashing because of the canceled wedding. If we liquidate assets now, the company will go under. That is a Hill family problem, not a Smith family problem, Henry replied coldly. Cynthia, realizing the severity of the situation, suddenly rushed toward me. Wendy, please. Tell him to stop. We're friends, aren't we? I didn't mean to break them. It was an accident. You can't let them send me to jail. She reached out to grab me, but a police officer immediately stepped in front of her, pushing her back. We are not friends, Cynthia, I said, looking at the woman who had made my life a living hell for the past month. Friends don't steal boyfriends. Friends don't steal wedding dresses. And they certainly don't steal heirlooms. You want it. Everything I had. Now you have to pay the price for it. Wendy, please. Ethan fell to his knees. The proud, arrogant man who had belittled me in my own home was now sobbing on the floor. I was wrong. I was so blind. I love you. I've always loved you. I only realized it when I saw you in that wedding dress. Please, I'll do anything. I'll be your servant. I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't let him do this to my family. I looked down at him. 8 years of memories flashed through my mind. The late-night study sessions, the cheap dinners when we were broke, the promises of a future. But when I looked at the man crying at my feet, I felt nothing. The love had been completely burned away by his cruelty. You already showed me what I'm worth to you, Ethan, I said softly. A bag of broken seashells. That's all you are to me now. Broken garbage. I turned to Henry. I'm ready to leave. Henry nodded. 24 hours, Arthur. Have a good day. The fallout was spectacular. The Hill family couldn't raise the $50 million in liquid cash within the deadline. Their creditors, spooked by the sudden massive liability and the crashing stock prices, called in their loans. To avoid Ethan and Cynthia going to prison, Mr. Hill was forced to sign over 40% of the Hill Enterprise shares directly to Henry at a fraction of their value, effectively making the Smith family the majority shareholders of his rivals' company. Henry didn't just bankrupt Ethan, he bought him. Ethan was stripped of his title as CEO. His father suffered a mild heart attack from the stress and retired. Ethan was forced to take a mid-level management position in a subsidiary company, working under executives he used to fire for fun. Cynthia, realizing the Hill family was no longer her golden ticket, tried to flee the country. But because she was named in the initial police report, her passport was flagged. The socialite who had flaunted her stolen romance across the internet was now a pariah. Her own family, embarrassed by the scandal, cut her off completely. The last I heard, Cynthia was working as a sales associate in a discount jewelry store, constantly recognized and mocked by customers. As for me, my life took a completely different turn. Henry didn't just hand me a black card and expect me to be a trophy wife. He handed me a portfolio. You spent 8 years supporting Ethan's career while putting your own ambitions on hold, Henry told me one evening, sitting in his study. He slid a thick stack of documents toward me. I had my team look into the business plan you drafted 3 years ago. The one Ethan said was too risky. I looked at the documents. It was the blueprint for an independent marketing firm I had dreamed of starting before Ethan convinced me to manage his PR. Instead, I bought the office space in the downtown financial district, Henry said, a small smile playing on his lips. The seed funding is in your account. The firm is yours, Wendy. Build your empire. Tears welled in my eyes. Henry, you didn't have to do this. I want to do this, he said, standing up and walking around the desk. He stopped in front of me, his hands finding my shoulders. I want to see you shine. I want the world to see the brilliant woman Ethan was too stupid to appreciate. Over the next 2 years, I threw myself into my work. With Henry's backing and my own relentless determination, my marketing firm became one of the top agencies in the city. I was no longer Ethan's ex-girlfriend, or the woman who married the blind billionaire. I was Wendy Shaw, CEO, and my relationship with Henry blossomed into something more beautiful than I could have ever imagined. Living with a blind man taught me to communicate in ways I never knew existed. We didn't rely on glances across a room. We relied on touch, on the tone of our voices, on absolute, unfiltered honesty. Henry knew my moods by the weight of my footsteps. I learned to read his thoughts by the slight tension in his jaw or the way his fingers tapped against a table. We fell in love slowly, quietly, in the spaces between the chaos of our lives. It happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. We were sitting on the floor of our living room listening to a vinyl record. I was reading a book out loud to him, his head resting in my lap as I ran my fingers through his dark hair. I paused at a particularly romantic passage, my voice catching slightly. Henry reached up, his hand finding my cheek. His thumb brushed over my skin. Why did you stop? He murmured. I was just thinking, I said softly, looking down at his handsome face. About how strange life is. 2 years ago, I thought my life was over. I thought my heart was permanently broken. And now? Henry asked, turning his face slightly into my palm. Now I realize it had to break, I whispered. It had to break so it could be open enough to let you in. Henry sat up. He moved closer, his presence enveloping me. I've loved you since the day you handed me that household registration booklet, Wendy. You were so brave, so fiercely determined. You didn't hesitate. You saved me just as much as I saved you. He leaned in, finding my lips in the dark. It was a kiss full of profound gratitude, passion, and an unbreakable bond. I love you, Henry. I breathed against his lips. I love you, Mrs. Smith. 5 years later, I stood in front of the mirror in the master bedroom, adjusting the diamond necklace Henry had given me for our 5th anniversary. I smoothed down the emerald green evening gown, feeling confident and radiant. You smell like vanilla and anxiety, Henry said, walking into the room. He was dressed in his signature black tuxedo, his silver mask perfectly in place. I laughed, turning to him. It's the annual industry gala, Henry. My firm is up for Agency of the Year. Of course, I'm anxious. You've already won, Henry said confidently, walking toward me and wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. I can feel it. You're biased, I teased, leaning back against his solid chest. I'm a businessman. I recognize a winning investment when I see one. He kissed the side of my neck, making me shiver. We arrived at the gala, the flash of paparazzi cameras lighting up the red carpet. Henry held my arm securely, navigating the crowd with his usual effortless grace. As we walked into the grand ballroom, I noticed a familiar, albeit much older-looking, face standing near the back by the service doors. It was Ethan. He was wearing a cheap, ill-fitting suit, holding a clipboard. He was working as one of the event coordinators for the catering company. The dark circles under his eyes were prominent, his hair thinning, the arrogance of his youth completely erased by years of grinding labor and financial ruin. He looked up and our eyes met. For a split second, time seemed to stand still. He looked at me, dripping in diamonds, standing tall and proud next to one of the most powerful men in the country. He looked at the confident, successful woman I had become, a woman he had tried to break and discard. A profound look of devastating sorrow and pathetic longing washed over his face. He opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, to call out my name. I didn't give him the chance. I didn't sneer. I didn't glare. I simply looked through him, as if he were nothing more than a piece of furniture in the room. I turned my face to Henry, a genuine, radiant smile lighting up my features. Shall we go to our table, darling? Lead the way, my love, Henry replied, his hand resting warmly on the small of my back. As we walked away, leaving Ethan to fade into the background noise of the gala, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past was finally completely dead. Later that night, when my name was called and I walked onto the stage to accept the award for Agency of the Year, I looked out into the crowd. I didn't look for the applause or the envious stares of my competitors. I looked at the front row, at the man wearing the silver mask, who was smiling with a pride so fierce it could light up a city. Ethan had given me a bag of broken seashells. But Henry had given me the ocean, and I was finally sailing.